Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the coordinator of the Presidential Elections Candidates Debate, John Vickers, Senior Executive Editor at Gold.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to see so many of you here, and thank you for coming to what is not only a special event, but one that I won't hesitate to describe without exaggeration as unique. I say this because, like many of you, I'm not originally from Cyprus. I came here 50 years ago. And in all this time, I can say with confidence that while there have been plenty of debates among presidential and parliamentary election candidates, there's never been one conducted in English and to a very specific audience such as this. Now, if you follow current affairs in Cyprus, and your presence here today indicates that you do, you'll probably be aware that at last count, not 3, but 13 individuals had publicly stated their intention to run for president. That number may well increase. I haven't made my mind up yet, actually, whether to join them. Although, given what I've just mentioned about being 50 years in Cyprus, and I didn't arrive as a baby, you'll doubtless agree that I'm too old for such a role, let alone not at all qualified. However, that said, the political system in Cyprus may allow almost anyone to stand in the presidential elections, but given the fact that over 500,000 people are eligible to vote, a candidate really needs the expressly stated support of at least one major political party. The front runners to become the next president of Cyprus, according to the opinion polls, are the 3 gentlemen who will be shortly outlining their views and proposals on 6 issues that are of particular importance and interest to you. The 6 issues are the economy. We're all interested in that, obviously. Cyprus as an international technology hub. The obstacles and difficulties surrounding relocation to Cyprus by companies, their management, employees, including immigration issues, visas, etc. The 4th one linked to this is the naturalization or citizenship process. 5th, the question of affordable housing and adequate schooling. And finally, the problem of finding suitably qualified local staff, which we keep hearing is a big problem for many of the companies who are represented here today. Now, once we've dealt with these issues, you'll be able to put questions of your own to the 3 candidates. Before we proceed with their thoughts and positions on the issues I've just mentioned, we're going to hear a few words from a member of the board of TechIsland, which took the initiative to organize today's gathering. So please welcome Mr. Stylianos Lambrou.
Presidential candidates, members of TechIsland, dear friends, welcome to this historic debate. I believe we're all here because we care about progress. So let me ask, how many of you would like to see Cyprus to grow into a vibrant technology hub? Please raise your hand. Dear candidates, multiply this by 1,000 and imagine how many eager, motivated people in Cyprus are waiting for someone to lead this transformation. The young generation, all the talent we have here, the talent of the diaspora, want to live in a country buzzing with ambition and innovation. How will they vote? I'm sure they will trust the person who can take on this challenge. I myself care about this cause deeply. That's why I could not miss today's debate. Despite having to travel for 18 hours and taking 2 flights to be here on time as I was on a business trip outside Cyprus. I'm thrilled to stand here on behalf of TechIsland's board to welcome you to this event. When I said that this event is historic, I really meant it. You're attending the first ever presidential debate conducted in English. On top of that, it's the first time to focus specifically on the Cypriot technology sector, which promises sustainable, continual economic growth based on solid foundations. The presidential candidates are here with us today to share their views on the future of Cyprus as what we call it, a tech island. We will have a unique opportunity to explore how an innovative, open-minded, adaptable, and fast, I repeat, fast government can and should support the fastest growing sector of the economy, the IT sector. It makes perfect sense to meet with people like you to discuss this cause. As many of you know already, TechIsland was established in 2021 to unify the tech sector's voice in Cyprus. By the end of the year, 80 technology companies joined us in this mission. Fast forward to today, TechIsland has more than 200 members that employ more than 18,000 people in Cyprus and another 35,000 people abroad. Around 100 of these companies also conduct business internationally from Cyprus, bringing more than 5,000 professionals to the island this year alone, and making technology one of the upcoming exports of the economy. Now, we all know that the past few years were challenging for the world. Nevertheless, the Cypriot technology sector has thrived even throughout the pandemic. The contribution of the IT sector in 2019 stood at 7% of the country's GDP. In 2021, it was nearly 12%. We expect this figure to be even higher in 2022, recording more than a 60% increase within the last 4 years and resulting in a quick recovery of our economy. We're looking at a 6.1% growth of the country's GDP, higher than the EU average. Based on data from the Ministry of Finance, we can attribute in part of this growth to the IT sector. Furthermore, the Ministry of Interior announced that 8,000 new work permits, excluding their family members, were issued. Based on an internal study by TechIsland, an IT professional, which is a high-skilled individual, spends 80% of his salary per year within the local economy, which amounts to almost 500 million coming from abroad towards local businesses. Furthermore, these 8,000 expats that relocate to Cyprus have created 30% of the new jobs positions for Cypriots, around 3,500 new jobs in total. Throughout all this, we have assisted the government and worked closely with academia, other sectors, businesses, and the public. We aim to bring suggestions to build stronger community and foundations for the future. This came through the organization's working groups, which continuously present initiatives for the IT sector's growth. TechIsland is an impact-driven organization, making Cyprus a better place for its citizens while supporting the local community. Our members are eager to give back. During the past 1.5 years, we donated 4.5 million euro to various initiatives. Dear friends, as you can see, TechIsland has always maintained a strong tech sector that can make a massive difference for the next generations. We appreciate that the 3 major presidential candidates are standing here today to talk about the future of this country and the future of business. Whatever the outcome of the elections is, TechIsland is committed to serving as a unique platform to exchange views from new ideas and foster collaborations. We are keen to build impactful partnerships towards a new, sustainable, inclusive, innovation-driven economic model. In this respect, my message to the candidates is that as TechIsland, we're here to contribute to your efforts to make Cyprus a world-class destination for talent and business. I would also like to thank you all for being here with us today and on honoring TechIsland with your presence. If you are not yet a member, you can meet Tania and Marios, who are the operation arms of the organization, and are happy to guide you through the process. Lastly, I would like also to invite you to stay in the afternoon following the networking lunch for the second part of the day, which is a presentation of TechIsland and all its work until today. We will also host an open Q&A discussion with the board to exchange views and ideas for the organization's plans and its future. Before I give the word to our presidential candidates, I would like us to remember that not every country has the opportunity that we do right now. In fact, most of the world is in turmoil, facing uncertainty. However, we are fortunate to live on an island capable of exceeding expectations. I don't think it's a coincidence, but I don't take it for granted either. Our luck results from relentless work, of battles with misconceptions, and daring ambition to transform and grow. It's a long-term mission that transcends individuals, and it will continue to require dedicated, wise, patient, and long-term thinker visionaries who see far beyond the near future of our country. I trust that the next president of Cyprus will work hard and all together co-build the global tech island in Cyprus. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lambrou. Well, it's time now to introduce our three guests. So, in alphabetical order, to make sure that we're fair. The first is a former government spokesman and later foreign minister of Cyprus, standing as an independent candidate, Mr. Nicos Christodoulides. Next up is a former ambassador to Cyprus, to Ireland and France, permanent representative to the United Nations and later to the European Union, chief negotiator of the Cyprus problem for 9 years, standing as an independent candidate, Mr. Andreas Mavroyiannis. And last but not least, the current chairman of the ruling Democratic Rally Party, who replaced the previous party leader, Nicos Anastasiadis, 10 years ago, when Mr. Anastasiadis was elected president, and he's hoping to achieve something similar in February 23. Mr. Averof Neofytou. Welcome, gentlemen. Before we start, let me just explain what's going to happen for the next hour. I'm going to ask questions on the 6 issues that I mentioned in my introduction. Each of you will have 3 minutes in which to set out your views, opinions, proposals, and suggestions regarding each topic. There's a clock, in fact there are 2 clocks there, to indicate how much time is left, and I'm sure you'll do your best to keep things fair and within the limit that you're given. As I noted earlier, you, the audience, will later have around 30 minutes in which to put your own questions to our 3 guests. So let's begin with the topic that, as I mentioned earlier, is not only of interest to the members of TechIsland, but to everyone living in Cyprus, the economy. I'd like you to describe your vision for the economy, how you intend to maintain or increase the present rate of growth, and indicate the areas that are of priorities for you. We can start alphabetically, which means that you get to begin. Mr. Christodoulides.
Good morning, John, and thank you for the invitation. Let me thank TechIsland for organizing this event and the opportunity to discuss a very important issue. I will start by saying that Cyprus is a small, open economy and heavily influenced by international developments. So it is very important continuously to adjust to international developments. And I know very well the challenges that lay ahead of our economy. So it's important, first of all, to enlarge and differentiate the productive basis of our economy. It's very important to have continuously against structural reforms. And it is very important also to enhance the competitiveness of our economy. If you ask me what is the vision, my vision for our economy, I will fully agree with the way it is described in the report of the Competitiveness Council, to make Cyprus one of the best places to live, to work, and to open a business in the European Union. How will we achieve this? As I mentioned before, it's very important, continuous structural reforms. To enlarge services are very important for Cyprus, and it helps the economy a lot, but it's important not to be fully dependent on services. So it's important to attract more investment. What we see with TechIsland is very important. What we see with higher education is very important. So the differentiation of our productive base is very important. So at the same time, we need to connect our educational system with our economy. We need to proceed with important changes in our justice system, the delays that we are facing in our justice system. Also the digitalization of the public sector, the brand name of Cyprus abroad, issues related to facing corruption issues, something that we need to face. And it is very important also to have a continuous open discussion with the business community in Cyprus. I believe that we have a common aim, and we can build together a strategy that will lead to a win-win situation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now it's the turn of Andreas Mavroyiannis.
Thank you, John. Thank you all. I think that we have here John Vickers and Mr. Lambrou, who represent both together, but in a different sense, the epitome of what we want to do on this island, in this country. On the one hand, John Vickers, who came 50 years ago, and he's here with us. And he managed with resilience to stay here in spite of all challenges. And then we have on our own side Mr. Lambrou, who is from here and opens his eyes and all our eyes to the world. So this is part of the vision we want to have for our country and for our economy, an economy that must be, on the one hand, solidly based on what we have as competitive advantages, but at the same time open to the world. And of course, if you are a small country like Cyprus, you need mainly to focus on today on high tech. So you are part of our vision for our country, for our vision of the world, and at the same time have a new economic mix, because all these stand together. You cannot have a country that relies only on one sector and expect that you will be successful. And slowly, we need to create an environment that will be healthy and will be very fertile for the growth of all business sectors and technology. Of course, research, innovation, the osmosis between the companies, the business sector, and the society should allow this country to be in the vanguard of development. Already the fact that we are having, an economic growth of 6% this year, and is largely due to the fact that technology is here, and all these companies. And of course, at the same time, it is part of our vision for the society more broadly, for the possibility to have in this country a good quality of life for all expatriates, for all Cypriots, and have a constant osmosis between quality of life and then all the necessary things that must be here in order to help people to be with us and make their choice to be in Cyprus rather than somewhere else worth taking. And this is where we believe that it's our responsibility to do whatever it takes to ensure those conditions. So here for us is not that much about very different visions. It's more about our own credibility and our own capacity to make this happen. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Mavroyiannis. And it's time to hear from Averof Neofytou.
Thank you for the invitation. Congratulations to the organizers. Dear John, I have a great vision for my country, but I know that the great vision cannot be fit in divided island. And my first priority is to try my best to unify our divided island. Because when we are talking about economy, you cannot have an economy stable unless you have security in your country. My dream and my vision for the economy is a AAA country, and I can assure you that I can do it. We minimized the public debt in the last 2 years by 26%. We have a public debt 89% today. Within 5 years, we can drop the debt down to 35%. Can you imagine exercising your business in a AAA economy? In addition, you know me, I believe in the liberal economy with lower taxes, more incentives, and with cooperation with the private sector. And the big success of the tech industry in Cyprus is because of the tech island and the close relationship that we built. And we create these incentives for this sector to grow even more. My final envision for this island is a AAA economy, a tech, green, and digital island, efficient to serve the business sector for the benefit of its citizens. Thank you, dear John.
Thank you, Mr. Neofytou. We'll move now on to the second topic, which is the idea that thanks to the many technology firms that have set up here or relocated to Cyprus, there's a great opportunity for the country to become an international center or hub for tech and ICT companies. As Mr. Lambrou mentioned, this relatively new sector is estimated to be contributing around 7.5% of GDP. You've all spoken here and in your pre-election addresses about the importance of technology and innovation as catalysts for growth in the Cyprus economy. So I'd like you to outline your proposed policies, practical suggestions, and perhaps incentives to help turn the country into a truly international technology hub. This time we'll start with Mr. Mavroyiannis.
Thank you, John. Certainly it is one of our priorities to create in Cyprus an ecosystem that will be user-friendly and welcoming to international businesses, and in particular in the sector of the high-tech and the technology companies in general. And for this, of course, we need a lot of things. And of course, we need, as we were saying here, to facilitate relocation, to have the right legal environment, to help with all the bureaucratic procedures that unfortunately continue to cause a lot of difficulties for people that want to come here. And we're going to work in order to drastically diminish the procedures and in order to facilitate both the life of companies and the life of the people. And then, of course, we need to do a lot of things in terms of orienting our education system towards all the professions that are linked with high technology, then create better housing conditions. We are going to come later, as I appreciate here. And then create conditions for schooling, families, etc. And of course, we need, to every extent possible, to have the necessary incentives, tax incentives and others. Let's be very clear that Cyprus is today a country which is member of the European Union. This is the basis for all our policies. We need to use this as an advantage, and within this context, find the best solutions for businesses and take advantage of the, as I was mentioning earlier, the competitive advantages we might have as a country in the European context, and taking also advantage of our geographic location and all the other elements that will make easier for businesses to relocate here, and in particular, high tech, which has some specificities. High tech, for instance, does not need the same amount of transporting goods and all the cost of transporting goods. And it's easier to be flexible, to be versatile, and we need to create the best possible conditions for this flexibility and versatility and allow more openings. But we come back to naturalization and visas and all other things that we can do. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Mavroyiannis. Mr. Neofytou.
Dear John, may I make a correction?
Please do.
The contribution of ICT sector is not 7.5%. It's already by 2021 9%, and I expect in 2022 to overcome the 10%. And to have an idea, my dear friends, the contribution of the tourist industry, which is still considered as one of the strongest sectors of our economy, it's only 7.5% contribution to the GDP. So sky is the limit. But thanks to the Tech Island and the people of the tech industry. But we have to continue to make Cyprus more competitive. You know that are in process, beside the tax credit that we gave, the eligibility to apply for citizenship, 5 years to stay in Cyprus, 4 years if you have a knowledge of the Greek language. But if you are eligible in 5 years to apply and you need 5 years to be examined, that means nothing. And let's be practical. My proposal is to put a fast-track procedure for the examination of the applicants for the citizenship. At the beginning, a timetable for 12 months, and at a later stage, maximum 6 months electronically, to have the answer the soonest. Secondly, as a tech island, we have to give more incentives for the technical park in Pentacoma. We tried for many years. We didn't succeed. That means that more incentives has to be given to the private sector in order to take place. And the last comment, I'm a liberal person, and I plan to liberalize the working permits for the IT employees.
Thank you, Mr. Neofytou, and I stand corrected. Thank you for the correction. Nicos Christodoulides, what do you have to say on this issue?
Let me start by agreeing with you that ICT is becoming more and more important for the Cyprus economy, and of course this is towards the right direction. As I mentioned before, depending largely on professional services is not sustainable. And we have to say that Cyprus has all that is necessary to become an international and a regional business hub, great quality of life, safety, EU membership, taxation system. And it's important to recognize the work that it has been done. The new strategy implemented from the start of 2022 is towards the right direction, but for sure more needs to be done. In our program, we approach this issue through a holistic, I will say, approach. And first, it's very important to work towards this direction through restructuring and modernizing the public sector of our country. We need to recognize the problems that we have. The upgrading also of infrastructure, new technological development and technology infrastructure like microchip need to be further analyzed and be facilitated through government actions. What is important, and because we are here today to talk, but also to listen from the people, because I insist that we need to work together towards this direction. TechIsland presented last month a mapping of the innovation ecosystem. This, I believe, can become a very important tool to find gaps in the ecosystem and for the government to facilitate incentives for the future of growth of innovation in Cyprus. And we can also follow the examples of other European countries, like in Finland, in Germany. Mr. Neofytou very correctly mentioned the issue of migration, the procedures, the digitalization of the whole applications, and also the internal procedures in the Ministry of Interior. I think all those issues will help Cyprus.
Thank you, Mr. Christodoulides. Now, as you know, well, of course we know, here we are, many international companies, and not only those in the technology sector, have relocated some or all of their activities to Cyprus, despite the fact that we don't always make it easy for them. And I'm sure a lot of the people here know what we're talking about. I mean, Cyprus is not part of Schengen Agreement. Our immigration rules are complex. We don't have a business visa yet, as far as I know. And it can take a long time, let's put it like that, to arrange for people from countries from which we require visas to come and work here. I'm sure you're all aware of these drawbacks. So my question is, what do you intend to do about them? And this time we start with Averof Neofytou.
Dear John, we all know that Cyprus is a member of the European Union, but is not a part of Schengen. And I want to be very, very clear. If the Cyprus issue remains unsolved, Schengen is not achievable. But being as a democratic rally, a member in the largest political families in Europe, and you all know that the European Commission and European Parliament are led by EPP people. The chairperson of the Commission and the chairperson of the Parliament belongs to my political family. What I can do is to reach an agreement with the European countries and European Union for the people that have a working permit in Cyprus to be able to travel to European countries with a business visa acquired online or upon arrival to any European country. That's, I think, that we could solve this issue. And making Cyprus fully digital means a transparent and efficient state. My vision is to have all the services of the state on the service of the people digital by 2025. This will enhance the transparency and the efficiency of the state. Every citizen and business will be served by the state fast and with minimum burden of cost. With a single gateway, one password, one ID, and one electronic signature. In addition, is in process in the Deputy Ministry, and I believe that by mid of 2023, the work permit process will be fully digital.
Thank you, Mr. Neofytou. Nicos Christodoulides, your turn.
Let me start by disagreeing with my very good friend, Mr. Neofytou, on the Schengen issue. Of course, the solution of the Cyprus problem will facilitate the access of Cyprus in the Schengen zone, but we already applied for Schengen. We are at the third stage of the evaluation out of 5 stages. Of course, we have challenges because of the 194 kilometers buffer zone, but I think it is possible to join Schengen, which will be very important. And unfortunately, it's only Cyprus, Bulgaria, and Romania that are not part of Schengen out of the 27 EU member states. On your question, two elements that I believe are very important. The first one is the full digitalization of procedures. We need to proceed with this, and I think it is possible. We need to recognize also at the same time that the work that has been done in simplification of the procedures. Of course, a lot remains to be done. The second one, which is also very imperative, is the only once principle, that you present your documents only once. There is another issue which is very important, is the issue of the blue card legal framework, which would really give to employees the possibility to move and work freely within the European Union countries. Personally, I'm in favor of amending the level set to 0 in the current legislation, which makes it fully ineffective. And I think the right argumentation needs to be prepared by the government side, now that the legislation will going to be discussed again in the Parliament because of the new EU legislation, in order to change this, what it applies today.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Christodoulides. And the same question goes to you now, Mr. Mavroyiannis.
Thank you, John. First, to say that indeed there is no direct connection between the Cyprus problem and being part of Schengen. However, it is true, and I'm going to be a bit here in opposition in order to make it a bit more spicy. It is the responsibility of the current government that we have lost at least 10 years. And let me remind that it was in the program of President Anastasiadis in 2013 to immediately apply for Schengen. And now they are telling us we have applied now.
Not now.
So, no, but it is important to highlight this because we made it that way and we are in this trap now. So we need to do whatever it takes for our country to be part of Schengen. And then, of course, normally we should have been part of Schengen years before because many other member states that joined with us became part of Schengen in 2009. But we didn't do what it was necessary. And the fact that we have the Cyprus problem is a factor, but it's not the explanation. It was never mentioned by the European Union that this was an issue, and we have the obligation to strive, and we have to make it happen. Then, of course, and I believe this is very important, and this is a request to you all, you should help us to digitalize whatever concerns you at the level of the government, including using the right consular services all over the world. We're a small country. We don't have consular services everywhere. Let's make it possible to use the European delegation services, the services of the Commonwealth, whatever it takes in order to make things easier. And then, of course, there are many, many other things we should do in order to make the environment friendly. And business visa is one of them. We should, of course, make sure that, we help businesses in order to open their wings and not in order to create obstacles for them to do what they are doing for them, for their families, for our country. The idea is to have also a digital identity. The idea is also to have the work permits along the lines of what is provided for with the long-term residences in the European Union, and of course, many other things, but I think we're going to talk about naturalization later on.
Thank you, Mr. Mavroyiannis. And I think we're all happy if you spice things up a bit. You can't possibly all agree on everything, and that's why we're very interested to hear what you have to say. When I mentioned to various friends and colleagues that we'd be having this event for a large number of non-Cypriot business people, among others, the first question that most of them asked me was, why? Now, one of my answers was that some, and perhaps many of you in the audience, may well have acquired Cypriot citizenship, and so, of course, you're eligible to vote. And that brings us on to the fourth topic, which we've mentioned earlier, naturalization or citizenship. Mr. Neofytou, so that he doesn't correct me again, said it's 5 years of residency, followed by a lengthy examination process, one of the longest in the EU, so we're told. I'd like to ask the three of you how you will deal with this issue if you become president. Here we start with you, Nico.
Just to answer to Mr. Mavroyiannis, that we applied for Schengen 3 years ago. And we applied
the 7 previous years?
Following consultation with the European Commission, because we were waiting the okay from the European Commission in order to apply, because
why?
We didn't want to apply
why?
And get a no answer. That is why.
It's about peer review, Mr. Christodoulides. It's not about the Commission, it's about peer review. And it was a commitment by President Anastasiadis 10 years ago. You didn't follow suit.
If you are, let me tell you that I wasn't Minister of Foreign Affairs in order to accuse me that I didn't apply
I'm
when I was a
talking
minister.
Personally, talking about the government.
It was an application from the Minister of Justice and Public Order following consultation with the European Union. And if you are a member of the European Union family, you need to consult with the Commission before applying in order to have a positive reply. No. Coming now to that question. As you probably know, a proposal was tabled last month in the Parliament to simplify the procedures because, yes, we have a problem with issue, making possible for members of the family to apply at the same time, like it is the case, I think, in Germany, and also limiting the time period from 7 to 5 years and 4 years for those that they have good knowledge of the Greek language. This is a case in Finland. So I fully agree with this proposal, and I think it will be possible to pass for the Parliament.
Okay. The same question comes now to Mr. Mavroyiannis.
Yes, let me first say that it is important that we're having this discussion. And it is not for me, if you like, just for us presenting our own vision, but it's an interaction with the industry, an interaction with all of you, and TechIsland, of course, is in the vanguard. And I'm very happy that it was TechIsland that had the idea and initiated, at the end of the day, this process, which is leading now to legislation before Parliament. And this is the way we should operate. Now, Mr. Neofytou was saying that naturalization requires 5 years. To my knowledge, it requires more than that. But anyway, the idea here is that we need, again, to have utmost flexibility and have the, if you like, the best practices that exist in the European Union with other partners. And then, if you like, we should have the normal duration. And we need also to have fast track. We need also to make sure that people that fulfill special requirements, like the knowledge of the language, I have some doubts whether this will be always the case, but I mean, it is currently in the law. And we need also to see how do we combine our needs with citizenship and how we combine higher education in Cyprus with citizenship, as is being done in many, many countries. Therefore, naturalization is important. Of course, it is less important if we are in Schengen. If you are a European citizen and Cyprus is in Schengen, then you don't have real reasons to apply for citizenship. So we need an open mind and an approach that will allow us, if you like, to tackle this issue. At the same time, the most important we need to consider is that, yes, there is, however, we need to be a bit cautious on this in Cyprus, because very easily, in the context of the Cyprus problem, we can be accused that, you know, you are flooding the country with foreign citizens, and then you protest that we are having settlers from Turkey. So, with caution, with clear rules, with a clear, if you like, vision, we need to continue working on this. The idea being always that we facilitate the life of the people and we do well with the wish of people to be part of our country, our community, and eventually to vote for me in the next elections.
They don't vote.
No, if they get citizenship, they will.
More spice. Thank you, Mr. Mavroyiannis. Averof Neofytou, what would you like to say on this issue? And please don't tell them to vote for you.
Back to the Schengen issue. We have in the panel two very respectable diplomats, career diplomats, and I will never dare to question their knowledge about procedures. I'm a politician. And I can tell you one thing. We can have Cyprus in Schengen because I will try my best to solve the Cyprus issue. This is the gateway for the Schengen. Concerning the citizenship, now to be eligible to apply you need 7 years. We have a bill in the parliament that has been done in consultation and cooperation with the TechIsland that anyone that works for 5 years is eligible to apply. If he learns the Greek language, could be eligible in 4 years. Dear John, I know you since 1980 in Paphos. I will propose that if somebody learned the Paphian dialect, can be eligible in 3 years.
It's another country anyway.
But as I said before, it's not only the time to be eligible to apply, but how quick the application will be examined. And I will repeat it. Timetable 1 year at the beginning, at the later stage, maximum 6 months, because today, even if you apply with the eligibility of the 7 years present in Cyprus, you need 5 to 7 to 10 years for your application to be examined. So we have to be effective and to add value to the policies that we put in practice.
Okay, thank you. I can speak Greek, but I don't know Paphian dialect, I have to say.
So you are
I
not
think
eligible.
a lot of other Cypriots don't either. I think everyone in Cyprus is aware of the contribution of international or foreign-owned companies to the economy. But of course, companies are operated by people, and most of these people have families. We've been told on many occasions that there are two major problems facing families that relocate to Cyprus, and these are affordable housing and private schools. Some surveys have found that Cyprus, and Limassol in particular, has a major shortage right now of affordable apartments and houses, and the country is also missing out to other destinations because apparently there are simply not enough school places for non-Cypriot children of all ages. So, gentlemen, how will you address these two issues if you win the elections in February? Andreas Mavroyiannis.
Yes, John. Both issues are of paramount importance. Concerning housing, we have a plan in order to provide housing and substantially increase the offer, both through building a lot of new units and give tax incentives to this effect, and also in making existing units that are not used, that are empty right now, available. And we intend also to give disincentives to people to keep units empty through taxation of high value inactive and inert real estate. And of course, the idea is also to expand beyond the city centers. I don't believe, for instance, that all your companies need to be at the city center. So, and we can also create schemes that will provide additional accommodation and will lower the rent price now, which is too high for the level of Cyprus, and make this availability, if you like, a factor that will attract more people. When it comes to schooling and education, certainly it's again a very serious problem, and of course the available positions are not enough. And also beyond the availability of positions, we have a language barrier. So the idea is both to give incentives to build new schools, and Alexander earlier was telling me about the new school they are creating. So we need to repeat this example and make available many more positions, both in private schools, English-speaking, possibility of learning other languages as second languages. But also we should examine the possibility of using the infrastructure of public schools in order to provide classes or programs in English or in other language. But of course, I think there is also an issue concerning preschool, and there again, we need a specific action. The idea is that we are fully aware, we understand the needs, and we want to work in cooperation with all of you and with companies. We might have a mixed system and give also incentives to all your companies to work together in order to provide education and facilities. So this is, if you like, an open challenge, but we need to meet it, including, by the way, remote learning, in particular online programs, if people are relocating to Cyprus in the middle of a school year.
Thank you, Mr. Mavroyiannis. The same question now goes to you, Mr. Neofytou.
Dear John, when the demand exceeds the supply, you have an increase in price. And this is a clear case of supply and demand theory in economics. What we can do? I will repeat once more. I don't afraid the populist. I will stick to my beliefs. Lower taxes and increase incentives for schooling. The business sector is not a non-profit organization. They want to make money. By building a school, they don't have the right return on their investment. There is not much yield. My proposal, because we need schooling. Without the infrastructure, you cannot be a tech island. Where are all those families will send their children? What is my proposal? To be practical. The coefficient that anybody will use for schooling will be credited and transferable to any other building projects for offices, or for residences. This will be a great incentive. Secondly, concerning apartments, we don't have a framework in Cyprus like they have in modern countries to give incentives building to rent. There is nobody in Cyprus that built any apartments or office, especially apartments, for main business to rent. Because there are heavy taxes, you pay VAT 19% and you cannot get it back. For this, what I will propose is the option to tax rental subject to VAT should be extended for all business-to-business transactions. In this way, the landlord or the rental company who opts to tax rentals will be entitled to reclaim input VAT on the construction. I have done this very successfully with a personal proposal to the House with the opt to charge VAT on office spaces. It is with these incentives and this legal framework that will solve the issue. In addition, to give incentive for higher coefficient to match the today's demand.
Thank you, Mr. Neofytou. Nicos Christodoulides.
Thank you, John.
An applause. How will you deal with...
Both issues are very important, especially housing in Limassol. So I want to be very, very specific on this issue. First of all, incentives to the private sector to provide affordable housing by using, for example, idle land. At the same time, what Andreas mentioned before, the disincentives for building plots in the inner city unutilized. Concentrate all government schemes under one model organization in order to formulate the right schemes. Incentives, tax and other incentives for renovating buildings, for energy efficiency and renewable energy sources. Special scheme to young people, especially to young people that can afford to buy their first home with subsidized or no interest rate, similar to the one planned now in Greece. It is also important to revisit spatial planning of the country. The issue of high prices that it was mentioned is also a result of bad zone planning and concentration of different users in limited space, not utilizing other areas that could also be utilized for housing. Also, schooling is very important. I recently read that a school was built in Limassol just in few weeks. Actually, this is a kind of initiative that, as a government, we want to promote private initiatives to cover the needs of the children. And the role of government in this issue, in this case, is to facilitate licensing and other issues like permits to teachers and etc.
Okay, thank you. Well, you've spoken about schools for the children of people who choose to relocate to Cyprus, but there's another education-related topic that's very relevant to our audience, and that concerns young Cypriots. Companies in certain sectors would gladly have local employees on their payroll, but there seems to be something of a mismatch between what many Cypriots choose to study at university and the skills and competencies that are required by the market, especially where technology is concerned. So my final question to the three of you is this: how do you intend to address this need regarding the qualifications that young people are going to require more and more in the future? This time we begin with Averof Neofytou.
Dear John, Cyprus, as you all know, is one of the highest percentage of people with university degrees. At the same time, maybe we're at the top list of countries that there is this big mismatch between degrees and the needs of the market. What we have to do in the short term, we need to upskilling and reskilling today's graduates. Because to educate the people to follow STEM will take 10 to 15 years. But we have a lot of graduates that we can work with them with special programs and special incentives to the private sector, with the private universities and the public universities for reskilling and upskilling today's graduates, the Cypriots. We need to change the culture. Today, it's focus, skills for the degree. If we want to assist the economy, skills for the job and the economy. Another suggestion that I will repeat in this panel discussion is my idea to let the private sector to consult our children. Today, this consultation is made only by the teachers in our public schools. My idea is to let the TechIsland visiting the young students to explain to them what are the jobs for the future. And this is very important, but as I mentioned before, this will take a lot of time. The priority is upskilling and reskilling. At the same time, to increase the grants. We have specific student grants. Whatever you study, wherever you study, I will not change it. But I intend to give extra grant for those that they will study in STEM science.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Neofytou. Nicos Christodoulides, what's your take on this?
I agree with Mr. Neofytou on this issue. First of all, the mismatch between our educational system and the labor force in Cyprus is also evident in the official European Union statistics, and it's something that we need to face. Let me also be very specific. We need to enhance the real interconnection between the labor market and our educational system by involving what Mr. Neofytou mentioned also, the private sector substantially in designing curricula and other initiatives in our schools, grant to every employee a specific fund through which he or she can reskill during his career, also increase the number of STEM schools in all main cities, but also to promote STEM culture in all mainstream schools. It's important also to integrate new technologies like robotics, artificial intelligence, and programming in order to enhance digital skills, both for our students and our teachers. It's important also to upgrade and integrate professional orientation from a much earlier year, even the last year of primary school, with the aim for students to make informed choices in high school about what they want to study. At the same time, we retrain the teachers to new occupations, and we also inform young people in the occupation of the future. We create, and this is very important, we can do it in cooperation with the industry, for example, with TechIsland, monthly paid internships for young people aged 18 to 25 in order to help them integrate them in the labor market.
Thank you, Mr. Christodoulides. And finally, Andreas Mavroyiannis.
Thank you, John. Certainly, the key is more direct connection between academia, universities, and businesses. And here we have a long way to go. Unfortunately, in Cyprus, we have not succeeded in this direction. This would entail, of course, a lot of things. It would entail businesses creating particular programs as joint ventures with universities, providing grants and scholarships, and a lot of things that have to be done. But first and foremost, we need also the right professional orientation. And usually when you do this the right way, it works. 10 years ago in Cyprus, nobody was going to study any discipline that is related to energy. Today we have a lot of people because we have the beginning of the energy sector being built slowly. Unfortunately, it did not really meet the expectations, and the result is that we have also a lot of Cypriots that are leaving the country, are expatriates, are working abroad, and we need also to create incentives for them to come back. So if we can have somewhere, somehow also on your part, a kind of contract of honor that if and when we have the right people, the right Cypriots, the right Europeans that are entitled to national treatment, we are going to use them, then this will create additional incentives. But of course, first and foremost, we need the right orientation, because for many years here we are talking about mainly lawyers, accountants, and free professionals, and we were not thinking in terms of engineers and people that work in high tech. So now is the time to do it. Of course, we need also to upgrade our universities. We need to take out of the way some irritants. For instance, public universities today are not allowed to conduct undergraduate programs in English. I mean, what does it mean? And there are things that we can do, and all in all, we need also to create more interaction and osmosis with foreign countries, because universities shouldn't be only for the nationals of the country. It's the best way to attract also young people. And if you make a combination of Cypriots attracting qualified and very good students, foreign students, and then this work environment in high tech, and then you end up by having also the prospects and the incentives of becoming Cypriot, for instance. In France, where I spent many years of my time, for instance, if you have studied in France, you are eligible to apply for citizenship after 2 years. So there are a lot of things you can do in order to create a conducive environment which will help both businesses but also our universities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mavroyiannis. So, ladies and gentlemen, the three main candidates in the February elections to become head of state have shared their ideas and intentions with us on the 6 topics that I mentioned at the beginning. But there are doubtless other issues on which you'd like to hear their views. So we have about 30 minutes left in which you can now ask the questions. So let me just tell you how it works. If you have a question, please raise your hand. When somebody brings a microphone to you, you can then state your name, the name of the company, and ask your question. The only thing that I would like to say is that each question will be addressed to all 3 of the candidates. Okay? So if you want to ask something spicy of Andreas Mavroyiannis, you have to wait till we've finished. It's for all 3. So, who has something to ask? Okay, gentlemen here at the front, can we have a microphone over here, please? A microphone that works would be better. Technology, where would we be without it?
Indeed. Andrew Tinney from Wargaming. One of the things that we found quite challenging is the lack of direct flights to many of the locations in which we operate. So I just wondered what the candidates feel about how they might go about attracting more carriers to Cyprus, more direct routes, and hopefully better service on the London to Cyprus route as well.
Okay, let's take it alphabetically again. So, Mr. Christodoulides?
I was the foreign minister, so I'm the one that I know very well the problem of connectivity and the non-existence of direct flights. And I think the only way to solve the problem is through incentives to foreign companies to fly in Cyprus. But it is a very, very serious issue that we are facing. And also it creates an obstacle to attracting people in Cyprus, not only for business, but also for other purposes. So the only way, I believe, to solve this issue is through incentives to foreign companies.
Mr. Mavroyiannis?
Yes, beyond these kind of incentives, there is something which is linked to that, which is the isolation of the country should allow us to ask for some state aids, as it happens in Greek islands, for instance, for all the transport and the communication. And of course, there are many other things we should, in the long run, consider, like, having planes that are made to measure for smaller countries. For instance, we have many European companies today use Airbus or Boeing, but they use more and more the Embraer, a Brazilian plane, which is a bit smaller, but can carry, for European distances, up to 100 people. And it's much more economical. So there are things with imagination we can do, and of course, we should also find a way to reduce, if you like, the fees that are paid at the airport, and a lot of other incentives, direct or indirect, that will help companies. And then we can even work, and I think we have here people that were in ministers or former ministers. We can have also some companies creating a base or a hub in Cyprus. For instance, Lufthansa Technik has a base in Malta. So there are a lot of things we can work out, and in particular taking advantage of the geographical position of Cyprus in the middle of Eastern Mediterranean and transform this disadvantage at the end of the day to an advantage.
Mr. Neofytou?
I will not promise to build a new national carrier. There is a real issue with connectivity. In Cyprus, we have excellent infrastructure. Both airports are of high quality, but we need more flights and more connections. The first thing is to give more incentives, and especially to persuade a carrier that is using Cyprus to have a station, a regional station in Cyprus with extra incentives. Secondly is the problem with Turkey and the embargo that creates a lot of problem to the airlines. The third is that Europe has minimized the cost of transportation, not for all European countries. There are 3 countries that are islands: Malta, Cyprus, and Ireland. Once we have credibility in Europe, and as I mentioned to you, I belong to the biggest political family in Europe, we can work out a proposal to have a special European policy for the European islands: Malta, Cyprus, and Ireland. And getting the support of Europe, we can solve some of the problems of connectivity.
Okay, yeah, when I heard that Mr. Lambrou took 18 hours to get to Cyprus, I thought we need to mention connectivity on this thing. Okay, another question, please. The gentleman there, yeah.
Hello to everyone. Thank you for the debate. I'm Yannis. I'm from Octopus Capital. Although I don't like to talk about the past, but I have to use the past as an experience. And the question will be regarding our kids and students having the same opportunities to be employed by all those companies. And this, it has been the problem, at least I've been hearing it for the last 5 years. and why we haven't done anything yet. And for me, I don't want to be another problem to solve in 48 years like the Cyprus problem, but I would like to see a commitment by all of you three, if you become president, that this should be the priority for 1st of May, giving the opportunity for the local to be employed by the big companies so we can help with high salary and better economy. Thank you very much.
Andreas Mavroyiannis.
I think I mentioned before that we need to create additional incentives for Cypriots. And I mentioned, this contract of honor between tech companies and the kind of national preference that should exist for Cypriots. And of course, when I say for Cypriots, I also include European nationals because they are allowed to national treatment. But it's up to us to adapt to the needs of companies. I am not in favor of building mandatory quota, except if we say at the same time that you do your due diligence, but then you bring the people you need. So it's good to have this preference, to have this due diligence exercise, but let's not enter into bureaucratic procedures that will kill the whole process. Because if every time you want to hire one person, you have to advertise it for 6 months, and then you start all over again in the world to bring people, does not work. So flexibility, yes, but good care and having in mind the need to integrate as much as possible the local people, provided they feel the requirement, including for me, and this is very important, the Cypriot expatriates that need to have additional reasons to come back to Cyprus and work in the sector of high technology.
Averof Neofytou.
As we said before, dear John, we have to direct our children to look for skills for the job, not skills for the degree. Dear Yannis, all these 200 IT companies that they trust, and they are here in Cyprus, they want to employ Cypriots, but they cannot find qualified Cypriots. Any qualified Cypriots, even paying the same salary as the foreign IT people, are much cheaper to the company because they don't have to pay tuition. They don't have to rent apartments for their employees. But we have to reskill and upskill our labor force in order to be able to work in the IT sector. To put mandatory quota will kill the industry. We need to give the incentives for more companies to come to Cyprus. And we have to educate our people to follow skills for the job. It's the only way, on the one hand, to have the Cypriots paid high salaries, and at the same time, for these tech companies to hire easily people from the local market.
Nicos.
Just to, before going to the question, just let me say that we have credibility in Europe, and it is very important to mention this. Of course, we have credibility in the European Union. I fully agree with what it was mentioned. You know, we have an issue with the young generation in Cyprus. Probably it's the first time that they run the risk to have less opportunities than their parents had. So we are fully committed on supporting the young generation, and I'm sure that foreign companies would prefer to have Cypriots because then they would not have the issue of housing and other issues. What is important is to connect our educational system with our economy, with the needs of our economy in order to face these problems.
Question. The gentleman there.
We've heard discussion.
Your name, please. The name.
Marios Lugaidis is my name. I'm semi-retired. We've heard a number of parameters touched by you and the audience on attracting tech companies and the shared vision, and I think TechIsland has helped a lot, and thank them, of having it as a shared vision of making Cyprus as a top tech island. One question I have is that, have we researched the companies that are in Cyprus, have left Cyprus, are thinking of coming to Cyprus, are targeted to come to Cyprus? Or what is that, what they really want, so as to prioritize these things and address them, as we cannot address everything from flights to education at the same time and at the same level. Secondly, all of you said about the mismatch in education and the locals and changing the culture. How do you plan to change the culture of the Cypriots of have one vision of becoming of civil masters, not civil servants? That's one of the main reasons of having such a big mismatch. Only if you look at the number of unemployed teachers, it will prove that. And third, yes, the locals do have a disadvantage in being employed by these companies, as the tax incentives, as they are devised, they are more geared to non-Cypriots, or Cypriot or people who worked overseas. So if you want somebody to net 100,000, if it's a non-Cypriot, you need to pay them 120. If it's a Cypriot, it's 170,000, a bigger cost to the company. Are you thinking of addressing this? Thank you.
Mr. Neofytou.
We have a very competitive system to attract companies from the tech sector. And we have done it because we cooperate with the market for the last 2.5 years. We cooperate closely with the TechIsland. We have the tax credit, the citizenship program, and we will continue to cooperate in order Cyprus not only to be competitive, but our vision is to be the top country attracting these IT companies. You're right, Mario, that the vision of the Cypriots is to become public servants, because the average income of a public servant it used to be more than the average in the private sector. But in the IT sector, in technology sector, the average income, it may be twice the average in the public sector. That's why we have to boost the economy in this sector with the value added for the economy, with the contribution that I mentioned of 10% to GDP, and also to create jobs with high salaries. I hear this argument why you gave the tax credit to those that they will come to Cyprus. Just for a simple reason. Nobody will have come to Cyprus without these tax incentives.
Mr. Christodoulides.
I fully agree with Mr. Lugaidis in almost everything he mentioned. I don't think, though, that today most of the young people want to become civil servants, at least as it used to be in the past. But what Mr. Lugaidis mentioned, and I think it's very important, and actually is our biggest challenge, is how we change the culture, because we need change of culture in order to achieve what Mr. Neofytou is saying, what Mr. Mavroyiannis, what myself saying. The first and most important is the need to change the culture and the perception in Cyprus for a number of issues.
Can it be done? This is what
I think it can be done. It cannot be done in one day. It cannot be done in 1 year, but we need to start changing our culture. And I'll give you an example. I mean, we create a perception in our society that those that they choose to follow the technical schools in Cyprus are not good students. We are in Germany, in the Netherlands. Students going to technical schools are the best. We did another big mistake in Cyprus. We closed the Higher Technological Institute in Nicosia, which was a very good institute, and people graduated from ADIV. They were ready to work in the market. So it's a long process, but we need to do it.
Mr. Mavroyiannis.
We need certainly to put more technology in education and give a sense of orientation of the country towards technology in order to make it attractive to young people. But of course, the most fundamental thing is to have job opportunities, better salaries, because this is what will attract people. But more than better salaries, you need also prospects and certainty. Even if you go to a tech company, the conditions of the market are such that you are not sure that this company will stay for long. They come in, they are testing, and they might leave. It's not enough. Therefore, you need to create a business environment that is prone to more and more development, and having here, a tech island, a really tech island, which is our own Silicon Valley somehow, you create the context where all this can thrive. Therefore, there are a lot of things you should do in order to help Cypriots, but certainly it's also a matter of diversification of the professional orientation of people in order to include much more the tech sector. We need also to be able to rely, as I was saying earlier, to the contribution of this sector in shaping the society, in shaping the future, including through having the results of the tech sector and the expertise being used by the government, by the economy more broadly, and not just be oriented to the exterior. We need internally also this change.
Okay, let me have a turn around because there are people on this side. The gentleman there. Yeah.
Hello. Hi. My name is Navid. Sorry guys, I'm standing in front of you. I wanted to ask a question about migration issue. The thing that we discussed, but all the attention went on, are we going to be part of Schengen or not? I'll give you an example. I'm a good example of this. I came to Cyprus like 8 years ago. Last year I started a startup company. I'm an API developer, a tech person. Yeah, my company goes well. I have good clients like PrimeXM, developing a CRM called Octolit. But it's been 7 months I'm waiting for my work permission. Plastic card. I started my company like 8 months ago, so I'm waiting 7 months for a visa. And okay, if you want to be a tech island, which all of us we want, and we believe in it, we have to prepare the infrastructure to do that. We want to have things digitalized, and we want to get the help from the local companies to do that. There are many talented people in Cyprus, foreigners and locals, that can create this digitalization, but are we doing it? Do we have any plan for it? Do you use the local companies to make your, let's say, road transport website that is honestly a bit ridiculous, to change it and create mobile apps for it? Do you have plan to digitalize migration applications, or people have to wait for months,
So your basic question is about it's the fact that you started your company 8 months ago. You're still waiting for
7 months.
7 months
Yes.
for a visa, right? Is this what you said?
Yeah. So,
okay.
I mean, my product is already in the market.
Okay.
I don't have a work permission. So my main question is, what is your plan to digitalize these things for people that after me comes to Cyprus and create their company here?
Okay.
Thank you.
Nicos.
First of all, on behalf of the government of Cyprus, to ask sorry for all these problems. And as I told you before, the digitalization of the procedures is the only solution. But what is our message to people like you is they need to build a digital strategy in this country together with the private sector, together with people like you.
Mr. Mavroyiannis?
Yes, for me, first and foremost, we need at last have in this country the one-stop shop for companies. And today, this one-stop shop has to be one-stop electronic shop in order for companies to be able to do all their work through technology and not to have all those issues that stand in the way. And of course, you know, expand and expedite all procedures through the necessary legislative changes, because in this country, our main disadvantage is that we are focusing much more on authorizations and permissions rather than on controls. If the state were to focus more on controls, we wouldn't be here. So there is a lot of scope in order to expedite all procedures and abolish most of the bureaucratic issues, if you like, and then have the necessary, accountability, of course, and of course you need for the state to do whatever it takes, but you don't start by creating obstacles. And of course, then there are a lot of other things that you should do when it comes to migration issues that has to do also with the rule of law and our justice system that is very, very slow. And you know that if you don't have justice, you cannot do a lot of things, because justice delayed is justice denied. So a new approach to things. And I mean, I know the practice that is followed in Estonia, for instance, where authorizations are not in the offing. What is there is you do your job and then there is control by the state.
Neofytou?
Already we have in process the one-stop shop in the Ministry of Commerce. I understand the difficulties that we face all those years. And the representatives of Migration Department, from Labor Department, and the Ministry of Commerce, they will serve all and examine all those applications. I mentioned before that by mid of 2023 will be the app for electronic application. 2023, because it's in process in the Deputy Ministry. But also, I will repeat, my intention is to liberalize all these procedures. Once somebody has an invitation for a reputable IT company doing business in Cyprus, your employees could travel and come to Cyprus and get their visa on arrival and their working permit. We have to make Cyprus extremely friendly for the tech sector, because we set high goals, and in order to implement them, you have to follow policies to be very friendly to the business community.
Okay, thank you. I think we have time.
Can I mention
sorry,
something?
yes, sure.
I fully agree with the visa upon arrival if it was possible, but we have certain restrictions because we're a member of the European Union. If it was possible, it was something that as a government we wanted to do, but we have restrictions due to EU membership.
Okay.
Let me just make a small comment. We overpassed this problem with the tourists from Russia and Ukraine with electronic application, and we didn't have any problems with the European Union. Why we don't do it for people that they will add value to our economy?
One of the requirements to pass to the fourth stage of the Schengen evaluation, it was to stop issuing electronic visas. It wasn't possible to give visas upon arrival and be eligible for the fourth stage of the Schengen examination. So we need to choose what is important, what we want, etc.
Mr. Mavroyiannis would like to say something.
I don't like to choose between my opponents, but on this one, Nicos Christodoulides is right. You know that we are not in the Schengen area, but we're a member of the European Union, and we have to follow the Schengen rules and regulations. And indeed, in order to reach the final stage of examination, in order to join Schengen, there are a number of things we should do. However, this is not an excuse in order to not find the proper ways in order to issue what is needed as documentation for people to come. And this is why I was mentioning electronic processing and using the consular services of the European Union, of other EU members, and of course we have the advantage of being able to use the consular services of the Commonwealth. But there, what is missing is exactly this digitalization. And we even have to change our legislation in order to make this acceptable as proof of something. Because if somebody presents a document in Malaysia and you do it, you scan it and you send it to Cyprus and they tell you, but this is not acceptable. So we need also to adapt our legislative framework.
Okay.
Dear John, a last comment.
All right.
In Europe, it's acceptable business visa on arrival.
Okay. Problems are there to be solved. We're agreed on that. One final question, please.
My name is Dusan Dufek. I'm from 0100 Ventures. I actually come from Central Europe, Slovakia, but I'm proud to say that Cyprus has become my second home. So I've been coming here for more than 7 years and helping to boost this ecosystem. So where I'm coming from in Slovakia, we have a big issue, and I think this applies to wider region of Central Europe, that our government is led by populists that don't like diversity and are very monocultural, which I consider to be a huge disadvantage and a threat to innovation sector. And my hopes are not really high that there's going to be any change in upcoming future. On the other hand, I think Cyprus is in this unique position where it can actually challenge the countries that are or want to become innovation leaders and support startups, etc. So my point here is, and there will be also a question, that I think in order to create a unique ecosystem, any country needs to focus on boosting diversity and boosting this multicultural kind of approach. We take Silicon Valley, or even in Europe, we have London, we have Berlin, and if we look into the ecosystem, we see that there is a lot of diversity, there is a lot of different people. And I believe that in order to create any sort of innovation, you actually need to have different people from different backgrounds, different cultures. You cannot put same people, in one room that have the same history, etc. So my question is that, what is your agenda given this need and also, the desire to boost ecosystem of technology and innovation in Cyprus, and what is the agenda to attract overseas or non-European startups in order to actually achieve this diversity that then will be hopefully a backbone of the innovation and technology sector here in Cyprus? Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, diversity. Who'd like to be the first to speak? Nobody. Andreas.
Of course, diversity is a must, and of course, we need to start by having no exclusions whatsoever. What we need are qualifications, and when you have the qualifications, you must be welcome, both for people but also for companies. And of course, we live in a globalized world, so therefore we need a constant interaction between what we do here and what is happening in other countries. And we need to reverse the trend that is existent now of brain drain. We need to have brain attraction. And without any discrimination, we need slowly to create this environment of diversity, which requires, however, also to have a more inclusive society. And we need to tackle all the issues that exist in traditional societies of rejection of the other, etc. So we need the integration of people in the broader society in order to make it happen. But then we need also to focus more on explaining that the skills are what matters on this. And because this is the last question, I understand, John, I don't know whether we're going to have concluding remarks, but I want to mention that for me, the fact that we have gathered here creates this necessary interaction between the industry and ourselves, and it's somehow indirectly kind of lobbying and making, your cause known to us and make us, all of us, focus on this. I don't necessarily have all the answers, but I need to be able to talk in order to reflect and have additional, ideas and solutions in order to make it happen, or if it happens, to improve it. Thank you.
Mr. Neofytou.
Diversity is the key for survival and growth. Besides the benefits that we explain towards the tech and the relocation of headquarters in Cyprus, previously we passed from the Parliament specific incentives for those that they invest and they put capital in startups. And we have to reconsider of giving extra tax incentives in order those that there are in Cyprus in innovation and in startups to raise more capital at the beginning. We also had a legislation to give the opportunity to the universities to deal with startups and have a share on the future profit. Unfortunately, as you mentioned before, the Slovakian guy, we face the problem with the populists that they reject the proposal, but we will insist on this.
Mr. Christodoulides.
Boosting diversity is very important, and I think in Cyprus we're doing well in this issue, compared also with other EU member states and how the situation is in those countries. What is important is, this kind of dialogue that we had today, to institutionalize this dialogue between the executive, between the government and the private sector. Because we're discussing about incentives, we're discussing about a number of issues that, in order for the executive to be aware and follow the right policy, needs to be at a constant discussion, institutionalized discussion with the private sector. And that's something that we're going to do.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, I think our time is up. Unfortunately, we could go on for half the afternoon probably. I think it's been a very interesting and useful session. I hope you agree. Please express your appreciation for our three guests. And as we always say on these occasions, may the best man win. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Nafis.
Pleasure.